McClure. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for let's all thank the Lord for the wonderful day He gave us today. It's almost like an afternoon sometime in May in '68. We're here because a mission, a very humble person, is remembered by many of us. We all got here in different ways of transportation. Some of us drove, some of us flew, some of us walked, some of us made sure we got here. But what we have to understand today is that the road that led us here was built by Harvey, Lynn Cooley. And he gave us a light to guide us on that road that led us to this site this afternoon. As he went into the mansions of the Lord, his light shine upon us to someday sit here and stand here before you. There's 7 of us that are here to honor Harvey that served in the 199. Henry Schroeder. Henry, where are you? Please stand, and just so that people will know where you are. Paul Schroeder. C.W. McGuire. And sitting in the front, of course, Ken Kuznick, Pascual Pancho Ramirez, and Gunther Bajal. Please stand. Thank you. These are the men that came here, and they follow the guidance, the road that led us here, as all of you did. Without that light and that road that Harvey built for us, we wouldn't have been here. He arrived a few days prior to his tragic day. I knew that my 6 months were coming up. Medics only serve 6 months in the field, either the first 6 months, the last 6 months, or the 6 months in the middle. So I knew my time would be sometime at the end of May. I was a little surprised when Harvey arrived and reported to me with the first sergeant that he was my replacement, and they were going to pull me out now that it was time for me to complete my tour. Being the senior medic, the first thing we did was introduce to the other 3 medics of the company, Gunther, Saul Garcia, and Ruben Delgado, and then proceeded to give him kind of a briefing on the man. Don't give this guy Darwin. He's going to ask you every day. Make sure that these guys take the malaria pills. That was our job, to make sure these guys were healthy. Captain Dabney's instructions were, if you let this guy talk into sick call, it'll be just you and the medics and I. So that was one of his policies. So Harvey and I talked about that. Make sure on Monday they take the malaria pills. Take care of this guy. This guy's going to need an eye appointment. Those are the kind of things that senior medics took care of. So it took a little time to go through about 150 guys, 148. The last evening on May the 5th, prior to May the 5th, the night of the 4th and 5th, in the early hours, we took time to talk. He told me about following his girlfriend to Houston, Texas. Never told me where he was following from. And I'm being from Texas, that's all I heard. So he talked about Houston, Texas, and he took out a picture of his son. Very proud of him. And he showed it. And he said, I'm going to be a good medic. He said, Harvey, you have a son. I don't. I'm a bachelor. You be careful. But he talked about his dreams He liked the medical. He was glad he was a medic. He was thinking of a medical follow-up. I never knew quite a doctor, but he was interested in medical profession in the future. When I left that afternoon on May the 5th and shook his hand and said, good luck, hopefully we'll see you at the main base camp when you guys come down for stand down. For some reason, I decided not to jump on the helicopter and go back to the main base camp. I jumped on a truck with a battalion surgeon. I said, I'll help him set up the aid station, and tomorrow I'll catch a supply chopper. That night, my friends who have served together since January 1st went a firefight. It started that night. In the morning of May the 6th, I was in the aid station assisting the battalion surgeon with the wounded when Harvey's body came into it. At that moment, what I saw was a young dad. What I felt was a young man who would never, and to hear the words today at lunch about not being, he would have been a grandfather. He would have been a great-grandfather by now. Those are the things that came into mind because we had talked about family the night before. Because he asked me. I said, no, I'm a bachelor. And we talked about family, he talked about his son, and so those were the thoughts at that moment. And so I replaced the young man who replaced me for 5 more days. After I came home, and I was married in 1970, my mother-in-law lived in Houston. We would travel to Houston. I would spend half a day going through the phone book calling the Cooley's families. No one here by that name. Well, my Uncle Harvey said, he was in Vietnam? No, he was in World War II. And I thought, well, maybe he's related. Said, no. And I always thought he was from Texas. Until one day, the internet was fresh, new. I saw an email, a posting rather. Anyone know my dad? My name is Lynn Harvey Jr. Immediately, I responded. But it wasn't his email. It was his uncle's email. From that moment on, Bob Cooley and I began to talk. As you heard, I organized a veterans band 29 years ago, still going. They're playing right now. We're at a performance, and my wife kept paging me. The cell phones were not quite popular like they are today. And it was because Bob had called the house. And we talked about the same things we're talking today. That light began to shine for that road to lead us to this afternoon. And that's why we're all here. We didn't know it on May the 6th, or May the 5th, or the 4th, the first time we met Harvey. But on that moment, on May the 6th, we all saw the light and the beginning of a road that led us to this afternoon. At this time, I'd like to ask Paul, CW, and Henry to please come up here.